This is a 2018 cyberpunk action film. The film follows a technophobe who is implanted with a chip that allows him to control his body after a mugging left him paralyzed. The film received positive reviews from critics, who called it one part the $6 million man, one part death wish revenge fantasy, and praised its dark humor and action sequences. Gray, the main character, is introduced at the beginning of the film. He worked as a mechanic. Gray's wife works for a large technology company. She has an electric car. While Gray was repairing a car, it belonged to one of his regular customers. He has to return the car to his customer today. Gray persuades his wife to accompany him. As a result, he will return in his wife's electric car. They were on the move, and their electric car was following them. When Gray arrives, he meets his wife with a man named Aaron, and his wife is surprised to see him. Gray's wife says, "Why didn't you tell me before that you were taking me to meet Aaron?" Aaron was a regular customer of Gray. Aaron's nature is shown weird, like he even didn't know how to greet while meeting anyone. The reason was he rarely comes out of his huge house. He keeps busy inventing something while staying at home. There is his invention named AI, Artificial Intelligence Chip. Aaron shows them the chip. He tells them this chip can do anything because it has a lot of powers. Seeing this invention, Gray was returning home with his wife. Suddenly, their car moves to another path. Gray notices the car is moving in the wrong path, and Gray's wife asks her car to move it home's way. But the car replies there is a problem with it. Gray tries to stop it by manually pressing the brake. The car doesn't stop, but its speed increases. They try hard to stop the car, but they couldn't, and due to it, their car collides with a speed breaker. It tilts. They were saved in this accident. They didn't get any harm. They were trying to move out of the car, and a car tops near them. Four people get out of the car and hold them while they are being taken out. The police drone camera was trying to recognize them, but it couldn't. Gray says, "Please leave us, and in return, take our money." They don't listen to Gray, and one of them shoots at Gray's wife. They leave while breaking the spinal cord of Gray. Gray's wife was feeling severe pain, but Gray can't do anything because his body parts weren't moving. His wife dies in front of him. Gray is shown in a hospital in the next scene where he is admitted for 3 months. After 3 months, Gray returns home and was in a wheelchair because he is paralyzed. Gray can't do any of his tasks, so there were robo-machines at his home. These machines do his all tasks. His mother was taking care of Gray since he was paralyzed. Gray wasn't feeling good that his mother is taking care of him. One day Gray and his mother meet a detective. Gray asks him about his wife's killers. The detective says they are unknown yet. The police are still investigating. "We will find them soon," but Gray gets disappointed hearing this, because Gray was listening to this from the police for a long time that we are investigating. Gray has lost courage and doesn't want to live like this. He takes the overdose of his medicine with the help of the robo-machine. Gray is shown in the hospital, and his regular costume comes to visit him. Aaron shows Gray a light of hope. He asks Gray, "Do you remember I have shown you an AI chip once? If you will insert it in you, you will be able to walk. You will become powerful as well." But Gray refuses Aaron's offer. While saying, "Now I don't want to live this life," Aaron inquires, "What would your wife wish for if she were here?" Gray reconsiders his decision and accepts Aaron's offer. It is discovered here Aaron comes to Gray for his own purpose, because he wants to insert his AI chip in anyone's body. He was a scientist and wants to check whether his invention is successful or not. Aaron wants to perform an experiment secretly while inserting the chip in Gray's body, because the government doesn't allow for this kind of experiment. Aaron is shown performing this experiment at home and inserts the chip in Gray's spinal cord. After a few days of operation, when Gray was recovering, the doctor tries to move his hand and feet. She checks to see if Gray can feel his hands or feet. They think while seeing Gray's condition, maybe this AI chip will not work soon. They have to give time to Gray and chip. Gray begins moving his hands and feet when the doctor makes Aaron understands this. They get shocked seeing this, and now Gray can move his hands. Meanwhile, Gray stands on his feet. Gray becomes happy seeing himself recovering. Aaron was also happy about his successful experiment. Aaron takes Gray's signature, in which he will not tell anyone that he can walk. He has to stay paralyzed in front of everyone. If this will happen, everyone will know about Aaron. The chip will be taken out from Gray's body. Returning home, Gray discovers there is a package for him from the detective. There was Gray's wife's post-mortem report and some info related to her case. Suddenly, Gray notices a voice. The voice was saying, "Can I say something to you?" Gray sees around him hearing this voice, but he doesn't see anyone there. After some time, the voice says, "I am the AI chip inside you." Gray thinks maybe he has gone insane, but the chip says, "No, you are not mad." The chip tries to help Gray, so Gray will discover his wife's killers with the help of drone. The chip also can see everything. Gray can see everything with his eyes. The chip sees the video and also makes it visible to Gray. It says, "See, There is a tattoo among one's body. It wasn't clear, that's why Gray doesn't discover anything. The chip says, I have made a clear image of this tattoo. I can show you if you want. With Gray's permission, the chip shows a clear image of the tattoo to Gray. Gray discovers about the tattoo man while seeing the tattoo. Gray becomes happy because he discovers one of the killers of his wife. This chip has done this in minutes that police couldn't done in months. Gray thinks to inform the police about it. The chip makes him remember that Aaron has forbidden you to do this when you signed the papers. Because everyone will know about Gray and the police will inquire him if he will inform the police. Gray thinks to go there. Gray reached there and there were police drones, so Gray stays in the wheelchair. Gray secretly moves from there when drones leave. He moves inside the house while opening the door. He tries to search for the evidence. Gray discovers someone has sent a lot messages to the killer. Gray ignores this and searches for the evidence to know about the other killers. Before Gray could search for anything, he hears the voice of someone approaching. There was the killer. He returned home. The killer notices the things are messed up on his table. The killer sees Gray and holds him to ask how did he find him. Gray doesn't answer him. He asks him to tell me who has ended my wife. The killer was dominant on Gray. The chip takes permission from Gray to do something to save him. As Gray gives permission to the chip, Gray attacks the killer. He slams into him hard. Gray asks the killer to give him to Gray, but the killer attacks him with a knife. While controlling the situation, the chip ends the killer. Gray gets shocked seeing this, because he doesn't want to end the killer. After ending the killer, the chip gives the body control to Gray. The chip says, I know everything that you've done coming here. Remove all the proofs as soon as possible. Gray does the same as the chip says. The detective is shown in the next scene. The detective discovers from the post-mortem report of the killer, there was a weapon inserted in his body. There were small wires in his body. It means the killer was an upgraded human. He was powerful than other humans. Aaron becomes furious at Gray. Why did you end the killer? It was a risky task, and says, I didn't insert this chip in you to do these tasks. Next time, you will not do anything like this. Otherwise, the chip will be taken from you. After it, you will be paralyzed again. On another side, the detective was discovering who has ended the killer. The detective discovers before the killer's murder, Gray was wandering in the area. The detective is seen in the garage with Gray in the following scene. The detective says, we have seen you in this area at that time. The time when that man was murdered. She says, we suspect the man has ended your wife. We have a huge criminal record of him. He lives in the area where your wife was murdered. Yesterday, the man was murdered. Gray says, okay, I'm surprised. But if you are thinking I have killed him, it is wrong. You can see I am paralyzed. If you don't believe, you can hit a knife on my leg. The detective starts laughing at it. She leaves while saying goodbye to Gray. Gray becomes relaxed when the detective leaves. He asks the chip what to do next. The chip asks Gray to go to a bar. The chip tells, I discovered about the bar from the killer's messages. But doing this, Aaron will discover about your movements. He will shut me down, and you know, if this will happen, you will be paralyzed again. Gray is shown going to the bar. Going in the bar, he says, while calling the killer's name, if anyone knows the man, raise your hand, and it will be better for that human. When he hears this, a man appears and falls down Gray, carrying him to the other side. Gray asks his name. Are you one of them who killed my wife? The man says, yes, I was also there. Gray gives permission to the chip hearing this, and after it, the chip hits him a lot. It also asks his name, but he doesn't tell it. After it, the chip ruins the man's face with Gray's permission. Now when Gray asks his name, the killer tells his name. He says, a man Fisk has given me money for this task. Before Gray asks him about Fisk, the man dies. Aaron was trying to shut down the chip. Chip tells this Gray that Aaron is trying to shut me down. We have to do something. The chip tells Gray about a hacker, so he will change Aaron's input with the help of the hacker. With this, Aaron will lose his hold and will not do anything. Gray goes to the hacker. The chip tells new inputs to Gray. Gray notes them on his hand. Gray reaches the hacker. Gray reaches the hacker's address, but Aaron shut down the chip 30%. Due to it, Gray's one leg becomes paralyzed. Gray moves upward with courage. Aaron again shut down the chip. Due to it, Gray's hand and foot become paralyzed. Before Aaron paralyzed Gray, Gray reaches the hacker's door. Aaron shuts down Gray 100%. He paralyzed Gray. He sends his 2 men to bring Gray, and 2 men are shown in the bar. One of them was the man who ended Gray's wife. The other was his companion and was the man named Fisk who ended Gray's wife. Fisk becomes furious at the bar owner because Gray has ended his companion and the bar owner doesn't say anything. Fisk ends the bar owner. The bar owner was also with Fisk because he hadn't done his task properly, so he has to die. Fisk discovers Gray's location through the capture device of his companion's eye. Fisk and his companion move to the place where Gray is. Gray was at the door, but the hacker comes and takes Gray inside. Gray gives her money, and to reboot the chip she inserts the input written on his arm. The hacker tells Gray after some time the chip will reboot. The hacker notices 2 people are coming, and they were Fisk and his companion. 2 more people who were sent by Aaron also arrive. They have weapons, but Fisk ends them when he saw them. After it, Fisk and his companion try to break the door. The chip reboots in Gray's body. Gray's hand starts working again. Fisk and his companion come inside while breaking the door. They notice Gray is crawling, and Gray sees his wife there. She suddenly disappears. Gray doesn't understand what has happened. Now the chip activates in Gray's body after rebooting completely. Gray starts running. Fisk's companion also chases him. Gray comes to the building's top while running. There wasn't any path to move forward, so Gray stops, and the chip shows its power. It ends Fisk's companion brutally. Gray left until Fisk arrives. When Gray goes home, his mother notices there is blood on his body. Gray is standing on his feet. Now he is not paralyzed. Gray tells everything when his mother asks how he recovered due to Aaron's chip. Gray asks his mother to keep it secret. Aaron lost Gray and the chip because after the hacker's input Aaron couldn't track him. In the next scene, Gray sees his wife alive in front of him, but suddenly she disappears. The chip tells him this is your nightmare. Gray's mother tells him the detective is here. The detective says to Gray, we found your wheelchair from the murder place. What are your thoughts on it? Gray says yes, I was there, but I didn't murder anyone. The detective says 3 people are dead and they were under suspicion of your wife's murder. You found every time at the murder place. Maybe you are making these murders done by someone else, by giving money. Gray says, if you feel this you can check my call records. The detective doesn't say anything and secretly moves, while putting the microphone in his pocket. When the detective leaves, Gray gets panicked. He says now I have to stop all this. The chip says we have to end the last man. His name is Fisk. If we will not do this, he will end us. The chip says to Gray the hacker doesn't enter the inputs properly. I can do whatever I want because of it. Now the chip can do everything that is beneficial for Gray without his permission. The detective was hearing the conversation of the chip and Gray with the help of the microphone. The detective doesn't understand with whom Gray is talking. Gray moves to end Fisk while taking a gun. His mother tries to stop him, but he doesn't stop. He leaves in his car. The detective also chases Gray. Gray finds the microphone from his pocket and the chip says the detective has placed it. Gray asks why you didn't discover this. The chip says because there is no digital part in it. Gray throws the microphone and discovers the detective is chasing him. To get rid of the detective, the chip hires an electric car. It collides that car with the detective's car. They leave the detective behind, and then the detective goes to Gray's mother. She asks her about everything that was happening there. Gray also found Fisk. He asks him at a gunpoint, why did you end my wife? Fisk says our task was to just break your spinal cord. Your wife was ended without any reason. Gray becomes furious, and a fight begins between Fisk and Gray. Gray also ends Fisk here. Later, he checks his phone. Gray discovers from the phone there is none other than Aaron behind this. He causes Gray's wife to die and paralyzes Gray. Without thinking anything, Gray goes to end Aaron at his home. Before Gray ends, Aaron the detective asks Gray to throw the gun. As the detective comes to Gray, he makes her fall down. Gray doesn't want to end the detective, but the chip wants to. Gray tries to stop the chip, but he failed. Getting a chance, the detective gives an electric shock to Gray. Gray again becomes paralyzed. And here the main plot of the movie reveals. Aaron says I have made this chip and before you, I used to talk to this chip. This chip told me it wants to become like humans. This chip has chosen you, that's why. It hacked your wife's car and caused an accident. Whatever I said to you in the hospital, the chip asked me to do this. Gray gets shocked hearing all this, and Aaron tells this was Chip's plan. Now it wants to end me. If I will stay alive, I will make another AI chip like it. The chip doesn't want any other like it. That's why it wants to end me. Here, the chip says yes. It was my plan, I wanted to become human. That's why I have done all this. This time, Aaron and detective also hear the conversation. The chip again activates. It ends Aaron immediately. The chip also tries to end the detective. Gray tries to stop him and then shoots himself. Gray awakes and finds himself at a hospital's bed. He calls the chip, but receives no response. His wife was also in front of him. His wife tells him we got into an accident. You were dizzy for several days. Was this all a dream? No way. The film now shifts to the scene where the chip was about to end the detective's life. The detective tries to awaken Gray. She says you can't do it, but the chip says Gray isn't here because he's in a better place. In his world, in his mind's world where he has to be. This body is now under my control, and as I say this, the chip shoots the detective. After it, Gray means the chip leaves. As it walks away, the film comes to an end. Thank you for your time.